How's it going, everyone? Sorry about the technical difficulties that I was having a little bit ago. Oh, no, I know we got audio issues again. Give me one sec, folks. Give me one sec. Hold on one second. Hold on. Hello. Can you guys hear me now? You should be able to hear me okay now. Let me check my mic. All right. We should be in business now. It'll take a moment. Should come up in just a moment. Can you guys hear me? Should kick back in. Okay, we'll give it a minute. We'll give it about 10 seconds. All right, here we go. We're good, I think. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. Started off with some technical difficulties, but we got them figured out. Everything is good to go, it looks like. I want to thank everybody for being here with me today. My name's Jesse. You're on my Painting with Jesse page here on Facebook and on YouTube. And today we're going to be having a fun time painting, drawing and painting This Is the Way. Of course, this is our little painting over on the side. We're going to start with the drawing part of it first. Okay, so you're going to be needing a pencil with an eraser. I'll be using a pencil with eraser today. Of course, I'm going to be painting it afterwards using acrylic paints, which is what I typically use. You can use whatever you've got. If you've got watercolors, colored pencils, markers, etc., it is all good. Whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you have basically at your disposal is what you'll be using. These are the colors that I'm going to be using for our painting today. Black. Okay, I'll be mixing some black and some white to create the silver look on Mando. Okay, but so I've got some white as well. We've got some yellow. Okay, some orange. Okay, we've got some pink, some green, and some brown. So once again, let me run through those again. Green, brown, pink, yellow, orange, black, and white. Those are the colors that we'll be using. I've got extra paper towels as I usually do. Good for cleaning up messes. I'm going to be drawing and painting on an 8 by 10 inch canvas. Okay, whatever you guys have, you'll just have to adjust if it's a different size. That's what the original is, of course. Then I've got a few brushes that I'll be going over here in just a little bit. I'll give you guys a close-up of these brushes. I did list these in the details part of the event page. So if you guys are interested and you guys want to go check those exact details out, they're there for you guys to, you don't have to have the exact same brushes, but again, we'll talk about these in just a second. I've got a cup with some water in it. In between steps, my brushes sit inside this water. I'm working with acrylic paint, and I don't want my acrylic paint to dry on me, as it will dry very quickly. So if you're not familiar with acrylic paint, it dries very quickly. So if you have any brushes that you're going to be using, well, you're obviously going to be using brushes if you're painting, but you don't want any acrylic paint to actually dry on your bristles, because it will permanently damage it'll permanently stay on your bristles and it will damage your brushes. Okay, so you do want to have a little water cup, have some water in there, and your brushes sit inside that cup throughout the entire painting process. I like to use a plate. I like to reuse my plates, but I'm using a plate here where I've already put a bunch of my paint on there. It looks a lot messier than what it looks like. I've got a lot more paint on here than I actually do because I'm reusing plates, but it's basically all the colors that are on here are the same colors that I just listed a moment ago. So the way this works, for those of you that are new to the page, I will outline a step on my end. I'll do it on the canvas, and then I give you guys some time to implement that on your end. Like I said, we're going to start with the drawing part of it first. Okay. Then once we're all done with the complete drawing, then we go through and start to paint it. Some of you have a stencil that I provided, right? Some of you guys downloaded that, cut it out, copied it. Maybe some of you guys already have it traced on your canvas. That's perfectly fine. If you don't have it traced on your canvas yet, again, we're going to be starting with the drawing part of it. I know a bunch of you guys are going to be drawing it with me. The entire process for today will probably take us approximately an hour and 40 minutes if I have to guess. If you don't have that much time to draw and paint with us the entire time, just understand that this video will be recorded and will be available both on Facebook and YouTube so that you can watch it immediately after the session is over. Okay, so whether you can paint along right now, but you have to stop part way, don't worry about it. Stick around for as long as you can. If you cannot paint with us today, immediately afterwards, tomorrow, the next day, etc., this video will be waiting for you to go back and watch it. Okay, so for those of you that are hanging out with me today, please let me know where you guys are painting from. Yep, I see a scammer up here on top. Let me go ahead and block that guy and get him out of here. Be careful. If you see any links in the comments section, most of those are scammers. Do not click on those. A lot of we don't have as many as we used to, but we still have a few that pop up and try to get you guys to click on some of those links. So anyway, just be aware that there are scammers in the comment section. Stay away from those. Don't click on any of those links. They are just simply trying to get you to click to go on a different site, try to take maybe your credit card information, personal info, etc. Stay away from those. Okay, but anyway, folks, if you guys are celebrating any birthdays, any anniversaries, etc., please put them down in the comments so we can say happy birthday to you or happy anniversary or whatever it may be. But anyway, hope you guys are all ready to go. In between steps, I will be looking over the comments section, saying hello to you guys, answering questions and things like that. But we're going to get right into it. Okay, we're going to draw first. Okay, we're going to start. Like I said, I've got a pencil with an eraser. You do want to have something that you can erase with. You can do this with chalk. You could do this with colored pencils. Whatever you've got to draw, just make sure you can erase. Very important. So I've changed the view on the feed here so that you get a nice view of what it is that I'm going to be doing here. So I just want to, especially for those of you that are doing this freehand, I want to note some things. Okay, Mando, the Mandalorian's head is practically in the center of my canvas. Okay, so if I was to start on this, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm eyeballing this. I'm just eyeballing this part of it. I'm going to come right down the middle here. Now, you want to make your lines really, really light so it makes it easy to erase. I'm actually making my lines a little bit darker than I normally would. Okay, hold on one second. There we go, maximize the view on my laptop so I can see exactly what you guys are seeing. So here's the middle of my canvas. This middle line right here will coincide approximately with the middle of Mando's helmet. Okay, then I am going to come across the middle vertically. So right in here somewhere. You don't have to measure it, you just kind of eyeball it. It's about right there. Going to come across. Again, make your lines nice and light. I'm actually making mine a little darker than I normally would, again, to help you guys at home be able to see what it is that what I'm doing, right? If you're using a stencil and you haven't yet, this is when you would start to trace it in, okay? You want to go and place it, start tracing it out. If you're only doing the outside of it, I know some of you guys like to copy everything. You guys like to use carbon copy paper and you trace in all of your details. perfect. If all you did was trace the outside, when I start doing the inside, that's when you guys are going to come in and start drawing. Okay, adding all the stuff that's on the inside. So we've got the middle. This is about the middle of our canvas. That part on that canvas is about right here on Mando's helmet, right about right there. Okay, and then what we want to do is if that is about right here, okay, we're going to come up right from that point there. We're going to come up. Depending on where you guys are, what size canvas you've got, you want to be careful. You leave enough space all the way around, right? So wherever you're going to put your helmet, you want to leave enough room to be able to include everything underneath. And this is where it might get a little tricky for some of you guys that are using different proportioned canvases. Again, if you're drawing this freehand, if you're using the stencil, it's you just put the stencil right on there, no problem, right? But if you're freehanding this is where things can get a little tricky. Again, I'm on an 8 by 10 inch canvas. If you're using a 16 by 20, all you do is double the size, correct? So 8 by 10, 10 this way, 8 across. If you're using something like a 16 by 20, that would be 20 would be across this way, and 16 would be across that way. Is that right? Am I doing that correctly? Yes, I am. Anyway, so let's get right into this. We're going to start with the top of the Mandalorian's helmet, which is about right here. Okay, on my canvas, just going to draw the top part like this. Again, you want to make sure you're using nice, light pencil lines so that you can erase them, make corrections if you need to. Okay, so we're going to start about right here. And if you notice, what I'm doing is I'm using a really loose grip on my pencil. My line doesn't have to be perfect right from the get-go. I'll be doing some erasing here. So the helmet's coming down on both sides. If the middle is about right here, the helmet and the middle is here, right? Here and here. The helmet comes down a little bit. And then what we do next, so this is basically a big upside down U. Okay, and on my 8 by 10 canvas, the Mandalorian's helmet is probably about 2.5 inches wide, approximately. Again, we're just eyeballing. From right here, we're going to come down both sides. Okay, kind of like that. Don't be afraid to erase. Erasing is part of the process. Okay, there we go. Again, very loose right now. Everything's very loose. In a few minutes, once we get done with the helmet and stuff, I'll take a little step back, look at it from a distance, not a few minutes, in a couple of minutes, and make sure that I've got the proportions right. Okay, when you're up close, really tight, it's hard to see all of the details. Sometimes you get a little bit of tunnel vision, so you want to take a little step back, look at everything from a distance, and you're able to make corrections that way. It's a little easier to make corrections that way. So, all right, here we go. So right in here, these little points are these parts of his helmet. So right here, again, this line right here coincides with the center of his face. Right here, we're going to come up. Now I'm bringing these two lines up above this middle line right here. Okay, again, if the center's here and that center point is right there, these lines come up a little bit higher than that. Again, everything's very loose right now. We will make corrections in a little bit if we need to. All right, so you guys take a moment to catch up with that. Nadine Whitehead says, I have to make a cake that looks like that helmet next month. Nadine, that sounds awesome. Sounds fantastic. Make sure you share your cake with me. So maybe I'll post it. Maybe I'll post it on my Facebook. Okay. Johanna Gutierrez, how's it going? Welcome. Catherine Cruz says, happy anniversary to my better half. This painting is for him. Awesome, Catherine. Happy anniversary to both of you. Fantastic. But all right, here we go. Next step. As we move along, as we get going, I'll start to pick up speed, but we want to move through this very slowly. There's a lot of details going on. If you have the tracer for this, if you're tracing this out, please have a little bit of patience. There are a lot of people freehanding this, okay? So we're going to take our time with this to make sure everybody gets all of this right. Okay, so right here, So this right here is about where that part of the helmet is. Okay. So these lines have a very subtle angle that goes up like this, slight angle. They go up at an angle. Okay. So what we're going to do is very subtly, we're going to just draw the line that goes like this, nice and easy. Okay. Again, slight angle in both directions on either side. We go all the way, or almost all the way to the very edge. Okay. Again, it's a very, very subtle angle, so almost imperceptible. Once you've got those lines drawn in, you're going to come in and do the edges. And they just go straight up. Just a little tiny bit on both sides. Let me give you guys a close-up. Okay. We'll refine lines in a little bit. Don't stress about making all your lines super perfect right now. Okay. In a few moments, once we're done with the general parts of the helmet, we'll take a little step back. We'll look at everything and make refinements, correct curves, lines, etc. For now, we're just doing the sketch part, which is basically laying down. It's not a really rough sketch. It's a pretty precise sketch, but it's still a sketch. Okay. So once we've got these lines on the edges, of course, those are these little tiny lines. We're going to come across right down the middle from one side to the other and connect those at the top. Nice and easy. Notice I haven't used my eraser too much. This line's not perfectly straight. Actually, these lines on the actual these lines down here have a slight curvature. As they get over to the edge like this, they curve in a little bit. Okay, so we'll fix that in a little while. There are lots of steps to this piece. A lot of little tiny subtle details that we'll get in a little bit at a time. Okay, take your time with this. Don't stress out. And everything will be okay. All right. Once you've got those steps, once you've got this shape in place, what we're going to do is we're going to start adding this section in here, the area all the way around the helmet, this part right here. We're going to add that next. So this starts just on the inside. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's correct these lines down here. Let's correct these lines now. We're going to add a slight curvature here at the bottom. So just come in, turn in a little bit. Okay, again, it's real subtle, but there is a slight turn right at the very end. They curve in just a little bit. So they go down like this and curve down, and then at the very end, they curve and connect. Okay? All right, so now this line right here, this light line, starts just on the inside right here, and it's going to end up over here somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that off. This line is going to connect over here somewhere. And watch what I do with my hand here. I use my hand almost like a compass, or my wrist. Okay. Nice and easy. This is a basic number 2 pencil. Okay, nothing fancy here. Eric Perez is asking, what kind of pencil can you use on a canvas? Right here, number 2 pencil. Okay, nothing fancy. See this? As long as I make my lines nice and light, they are easy to erase. And I'm just erasing right now to demonstrate. Okay, but basic number 2 pencil. Okay, great question though. Now, I can fix this a little bit to make it a little bit more pronounced, kind of like what's on the original. Okay, there we go. Now, we're going to come up. We're going to come out slightly past our helmet line just a little bit. Comes up. Okay, now we're going to come across the top, all the way across. And again, this is going to protrude just a little tiny bit. So on the helmet here, this line that we're drawing comes out a little bit past the edge of that helmet. Okay. Then it comes down. And then it comes in. I'm going to stop there for a moment, let you guys catch up. Somebody asked me when I posted this on Facebook, when I posted the event on Facebook, Somebody asked if they could turn this into Boba Fett, and you absolutely can. Some subtle changes, you can turn him into Boba Fett. Slightly different colors, slightly different details on the helmet, right? Boba Fett's got that thing that pops up right here, and his armor's a little different, but you could actually turn this into Boba Fett pretty easily. Okay, for those of you that are interested in doing that. But all right, so we've got this little line right in here, basically coincides with this side, right? Kind of even out, they match up right here on the inside. Okay, same thing as what we did over here. We're going to bring this line up, curves back. All right. Nothing to it. What you're going to do next is right in here. You're just going to connect. Draw a line between these two spaces. Okay. Now, let's take a look at our helmet before we continue. Make any corrections. Make the corrections now. We don't want to get too far ahead and then realize, oh man, I made that wrong and I made that wrong, and now I got to go back and change a lot of different things. One thing that I'm noticing is this part right here is quite a bit wider than what I have over here. This is actually supposed to be pretty thin. So I'm going to go ahead and make a correction. Pretty simple one, just erasing on both sides. Drawing entails a lot of erasing. Not every line that you put down that first time is going to be perfect. Some of them are. Some of them are going to be exactly where you want them, and other lines are not. No big deal. Make your little corrections, and because we're painting over this, it doesn't really matter too much if you've got some smudging. Okay, no big deal. So all I'm doing now is I'm going to bring these points in a little bit closer together. The two lines, going to bring those in together, and then straight down. All I did was narrowed the gap in that middle of that helmet. Okay, so it's a lot smaller. And then what you may have to do also is bring these in a little bit tighter. Again, nothing wrong with erasing. I know some people don't like to. That's all right. There we go. I like that much better. Okay, now here on top, I'm going to go and erase this line that we made down the middle. I'm going to erase it from here on the top of the helmet. Okay, that's gone. Obviously, we have this top part here in the center that we've got to add. And so that all this is the same width that this has. It's almost like if you were to continue these lines like this up, this line that we drew would just come up across the top. Same thing on the other side. Line comes up, goes right up to the very top. I can erase this line here and then just bring this up a little bit, protrudes out just a touch and comes across. Okay. So take a moment on that. I know that was kind of fast. So I'm going to erase this line right in here. I'll clean it up a little. Okay, again, this line right here, we don't need that. So clean that up just a touch. All right, everybody. So everybody take a look at your Mando's helmet. Take a look at it. Make little touch-ups, little refinements. See what we got. Who's on with us today? Emily Burke's asking, what is your favorite episode of The Mandalorian? You know what? There were a lot of really good ones. I think for me, the show started off kind of slow. At first, I was like, this is pretty good, but I wasn't like really into it. As it progressed, it became a lot better. But as far as my favorite episode, I think the one where Luke Skywalker shows up, right? Towards the very end when they're all trapped on that ship and they're about to get overtaken by those robots. And he shows up and takes Grogu. I think that might have been the best part. Caught me a little bit off guard. I kind of saw, I started going, who is that? Is that Luke? Right? That was pretty cool. But all right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to look at my helmet. I'm going to go ahead and clean up these lines, basically refine them. If I didn't like anything, I'd go through and erase it. But I like everything that I've got, so I'm just going to go darken them up. Now, you don't have to darken these up. It's up. I'm doing it so you can see my lines a little bit better. I would say stay on the safe side and don't make them too dark in case you still have to erase later. But so I like all these lines that I've got. They're good to go. Right here, I'm going to come across, make this a little bit more defined. Okay. And again, folks, let's say you're not happy with what you've got so far. Don't worry about it. You're going to be able to come back later and do it again if you'd like. Okay. So all we've got left on the helmet are a couple of things. We got these little things on the sides of the head, sides of the helmet, and then these two little lighter parts on the inside. So all these guys are a couple of rectangles to just kind of do this. Kind of like that. And then on the other side, same thing. Pretty identical. Okay, kind of like that. As far as these guys are concerned, pretty basic. Kind of similar to what we did earlier. Line right here. It's going to come up to about here. And then down. What do you guys think? What's your favorite? Tell me which one your favorite Mandalorian episode is. Okay, so then same thing over here. Actually, the one when Boba Fett shows up, that's really cool too. There were a lot of good ones, especially towards the end. I ended up liking the later episodes, like I said, more than I did the first. Okay, but anyway, there's those. All right. Again, folks, I'm taking my time. There's a lot of little steps. I want to make sure you guys get it all right. But even if you're struggling a little, don't worry about it. Just stay with it. Do your best. Don't get too frustrated. Just try to relax. If you're freehanding this, right? For those of you that did this, that did the stencil, that traced everything out, of course, just make sure you got all those details on the inside. I know I'm kind of probably, it's kind of obvious, right? But just in case you guys want to be adding all that stuff in there as well. Kimberly Ann says, when Luke came. And then let's see. Eileen says, when Ashoka came, that was cool. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, when Luke, there was a part I think where you could see his hand, right? His gloved hand. And I was like, wait, right? Because his hand, it's his artificial hand. That was pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, it was a good show. Definitely a good show. Looking forward to the next one, the Boba Fett, right? It's the Boba Fett series. We'll see how that turns out. I'm expecting nothing but good stuff. But all right, so we got the helmet in place. The main thing you guys want to make sure of with this is that you have enough space underneath to add his body and Grogu, of course, and everything else. All right. Again, don't stress. Do your best. Everyone's drawing is going to look a little different, right? I do want you guys to share your paintings with me. So please, when you're all done, take pictures of your paintings. Maybe if you guys can hold them, send those to me via Messenger here on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, send them to me through YouTube, through Gmail. paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. And then that way, what I do is I grab them all, put them in a large post on Facebook, and I share them with everyone. People like to see how everybody else's paintings turn out. But feel free to make changes to it, add stuff to it, change colors, whatever you guys want to do. Perfectly fine. I like to see creativity. So, all right, let's continue. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start in on the shoulders here. Okay. And these shoulders, all I'm going to do to start off with is I'm just going to draw a couple of angled lines that come out like this. I'm not worried about the little curves of the cape. So right now, I'm just kind of down here at the bottom near the corners of his helmet. We drop down a little bit inwards, and there's a couple of angled lines that come out. Okay, just like that. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Again, just keep them nice and light so you can erase. Then, once we've got these lines that stick out a little bit, they don't stick out too far, right? Make sure you're leaving enough room for the shoulders. I'm going to start with the left shoulder here. This guy right here. Okay, right at the top of that shoulder pad, part of his armor. It kind of goes like this, and then it curves out a little. towards the edge of the canvas. Then it's going to drop down. Okay. Again, light pencil lines, everyone, so you can erase them if you need to. Then that comes in. All this is basically, it's almost like a bullet. If you look at a bullet shape, there's a bullet shape in there. What I like to do is when I'm drawing is I like to break things down, and I do this automatically now without really thinking about it too much. It's like I break things down into shapes. The helmet's almost like a bullet, like a kind of a squat bullet or an upside down U. That's the general shape, right? But this here, same thing. It's almost like you're looking at a bullet. So this is the bottom edge here. Goes in. It's going to come up. Make sure that this part of it is especially light because we're going to have Grogu's ear to add later, and we don't want to sit there and have to contend with really dark lines here. So right there, whoops, drop my pencil. There's the inside of that that part of his armor. All right, now here on the edge, we've got his arm that sticks out. It goes out like this. That's that part right there. Okay. Before we continue with anything over here, we're going to come over to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing. So part of his armor, that's the top part right there, sticks out. And again, look how I'm holding my pencil nice and loose. Okay. Comes down like this towards the edge of the canvas. Now, if your canvas is larger, no big deal, right? Don't worry about that too much. Just know that, so let's say one way to figure out how wide Mando is, you can take his head, you can do his helmet, go like this, and go how many of his helmets fit in across his body. Go like this. One. Actually, we'll do it on the original. One. There's 1, 2, and maybe about a half. So again, if we take his helmet and we do this, bring it over to the edge, we got 1 helmet, 2 helmet, and then about a half of another helmet. So that's an approximation. That's how you can eyeball something very quickly. Now, if I do this, if I go all the way to the edges of his helmet, and I kind of do this, we got 1, 2, almost maybe 2 1/4. There's different ways you can go about measuring something very quickly without actually busting out a ruler. Just kind of use your eyeballs. You can use your hands, right, to get proportions, to get pretty accurate proportions. But all right, let's continue. Right over here. Okay. Now, of course, right in here, we're going to bring that down inwards, back up, and then we're going to connect it here at the top. Your shoulder pads don't have to look exactly like mine. As long as they're kind of close, you're fine. Okay. All right. Again, nice and easy, nothing crazy about this. Have fun with it. Let's see. Yes, Janine says, I started too high up. Now there's a lot of empty space on the bottom. Do you have a suggestion? You can either leave that space empty for now and then later take a look at a picture of Mandalorian where he's carrying Baby Yoda and then add that in later. So you would leave all that space underneath empty. Or the other option, an easier option, is you're going to put something in front of him like a wall, like he's maybe holding Baby Yoda and there's a wall in front of them, right? Something maybe from one of the scenes in the show, something that looks like it belongs on the Mandalorian set, right? So that's the easiest way to add like a wall so you don't have to put in the rest of them, okay? Or maybe you can see part of this of the ship or something, not the ship, but those this would be a lot more complex, but those land speeders that they used early in the movie or in the show. Okay. But anyway, that's one idea. Use something to cover up that space with, except, or then just continue to draw the rest of what you would actually see if you were drawing both the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. Okay. Or Grogu. But all right, here we go. I know some people get upset when he's called Baby Yoda, because that's what everybody was calling him at the beginning. And then, of course, later on, we found out his name is Grogu. But all right, there's the arms, right? Now, what I want to do is you can barely notice it, but on the original painting that I did here, there's a little section in black where the arms actually It's kind of like where the arms connect to his body. So like right in here, we're just going to have a couple of, we're just going to do like an upside down V. Again, the inside of his arm, and then where his waist would be. You're not really going to see this. There's going to be black in here. It's really hard to see against the brown that I'm going to be using there, but that's what you've got. Okay. Again, nothing fancy. All right. Okay. So what are we going to do next? We're going to do the chest plates. These guys right here. Okay. Just the top part. Okay. So these line up with these points on the shoulder armor. These guys right here. So about right here is where the top of this one is. It comes out. Again, nice and light. Don't forget, nice and light pencil lines. Don't go too heavy on your lines. And then this one here, this one comes down a little bit lower. Doesn't line up here. It comes a little bit lower. You know, they line up, right? So start with this one here, come across, and then come over on the other side. Kind of bring it up, at a slight angle. This one actually kind of curves a little. Kind of like that. And then right here, just bring down your lines like that. Again, folks, lots of steps to this drawing today, but we break it down a little bit at a time, little by little by little, and we slowly, make a very complex piece, or a much more complex piece, by looking at it a little piece at a time. We do a little piece at a time. We don't want to get overwhelmed. Give me 1 second. I just noticed that my phone is not plugged in over here. I want to make sure that we're charging. I don't want to lose you guys part way. There we go. A few little technical difficulties to get around today. All good though. Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take this line, this original line that we made. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I can still see a little bit of it, right? I'm not completely erasing every single bit of it. It's really faint, but I can still see it. But we're going to start drawing Baby Yoda, Mr. Grogu. Little Grogu. We're going to start with the top of his head. Now, the top of his head, there's a little bit of an indentation that comes in here at the top, and then it curves on each side. And I'll give you guys a close-up in a second, but I'll start with the very top, right in here. And it curves up and curves down. Same thing on the other side. Okay, something like this. Don't forget, light lines makes it easier to make corrections. Don't stress too much about leaving smudges either, because we're going to be painting over most of that. Okay, there's a top of Grogu's head. Now we're not going to do the ears just yet. We're going to come around like this. Here, let me do the bottom first. I'm going to go ahead and put the bottom, so we know how far down to go. It's going to look like a tomato, for now. So I'm just creating the general shape of his head without the ears. Okay. All right, take a moment with that. There we go. Somebody said you can make Grogu's pod to take place. That could work. Maybe Grogu, the only thing is that you'd have to make the top of the pod. Actually, I'm trying to remember, when he opens up, you still see the back part of the pod. It's not like it does all the way across and you don't see the back. At least not that I remember. But maybe something like that, modifying the pod a little bit would work. But there's a lot of other ideas. What's happening, Wild Man Dash? How's it going? Let's see. But yeah, that's what I would say. Probably the easiest thing would be to do the wall part of it. Okay, make a wall in front of them. They're like, so basically you don't get to see the bottom of Mando's hands, but he's holding the baby. He's kind of doing this, right? He's walking with the baby, kind of doing something like that. So you're barely seeing this top of this part of his arms, and then you're seeing, of course, the top of Grogu's head. But if you were to draw the rest, there are pictures that you can find online with something similar, where the rest of the body, and then so you would just add in whatever's missing. Okay, that would be probably the cooler way of doing it, but you don't have to go the cooler way. It could be just fine with putting a wall in front of that part. All right, so here we go. Let's continue. Okay, so here's the tomato. We have a little tomato right here. We're going to go like this on the edges. Okay, just kind of come out like this. Okay. Nice and easy. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go and add these ears. These big old, they look like airplane ears. So right over here somewhere. We're going to come out. This ear is going to end up over here somewhere. So maybe I'll even mark it off. Draw my little point where I want that ear to go. So from right here, we're going to come out all the way across. Nice and easy. Okay. Then from there, we're going to curve underneath. Comes across. Connects right there. And then this line right here, the line for that part of his armor, I'm just going to go ahead and erase it. We don't need that anymore. Okay. Other side, this little ear is going to come out over here somewhere. Okay, so here we go. From right about here, comes out. Curves under, back. And then, of course, we erase that just like on the other side. So again, everyone, I hope everybody's having some fun with this. Just relax. Don't stress too much about your drawing part of it or your painting. You can come back, do this again as many times as you'd like. Usually by second or third time that you do something, drawing especially, you get much better at it. Your brain adapts to what you're doing. And any mistakes that you made on the first one or two, you start to correct those. You already know, oh, I made that too big last time. I can adjust it and make it smaller. Okay? So definitely do it as many times as you'd like. But okay, so we got the ears in place. I'm going to go ahead and start with the eyeballs, the big round eyes Grogu has. And there's all they are is a couple of big circles. Well, not that big. A little too big, Jesse. All right, that's better. And of course, they're about the same size. Now I'm drawing on an easel. Oftentimes when I'm trying to be precise with when I'm, to keep my hand from shaking, sometimes I'll do it like this, where I put my finger up against the canvas. It makes it easier. It basically supports my hand, makes it easier to make straighter lines. But often what I'll do is I'll take my non-drawing hand, put it on the table, and I'll place my drawing hand right over the wrist, and it stabilizes my hand, so it's easier for me to make straighter lines. Okay. In this case, it just holds my hand up so I can make these circles it's a little easier to make those circles. Okay. So his little nose, and I'll give you guys a close up here in a second. His little nose is just basically a U. The letter U or V with a couple little lines that come down on the sides. That's probably a little exaggerated. I don't want them to be that pronounced. So something more like that. Okay. His little mouth is basically just a wiggly little line. So he's got a little kind of frown going on, or curious look, where he just stares at everything. Then I'm going to make a little correction up here to the top of the head. I'm just going to adjust a bit. I think I brought it down a little too much. Just going to bring it up a little higher. Make less of a depression here at the top. Okay. Then his little forehead frowns, the forehead wrinkles, frowns, wrinkles. Okay, we got 2 of them. Little furrowed brow. There's one line, one wrinkle, and then here's another one. Okay, a little close-up of that. Wendy March says, started late but caught up. Pretty good, Wendy. Good job. All right, let's see who else. Who else is on here with us right now? Let's see. Are we going to do Mando or the background first when we paint? So we're going to do either one will work. I think we're going to start with the background first. We'll do the background first. Actually, we'll see. We'll see. We're going to do Mando first. Great question. We're going to do Mando first, then the background. We're going to come back to Mando. We are going to draw the moon in here before we actually paint in the background, but we got to draw that moon in, okay? Or the sun. Actually, it could be the sun, or it's a moon. I'm not sure what this would be on this planet that they're hanging out on. Whatever you want it to be, I guess that's what the answer is. But okay, let's look at the ears now. So we're going to remove these. Okay, we're going to do this. The sides of the head, we're just going to come in from right here. We're going to curve a little line in like that. Come out to the side. Go back under. A little pink part of his ear. Same thing on the other side. Little line from here. We're going to draw a line up, curves out. But yeah, we're going to start with Mando. Then we're going to work. Mando and Grogu. We're going to add some detail to the inside. Then we're going to paint the background. Come back to the characters. I'll explain why while we're painting. I'll explain why we're going to do it that way. But okay, there's Grogu. What we need to do is finish off the chest plates or chest plate. These little corners right here come down. Okay, it comes down like this. Okay, same thing over here. Comes down. Past Grogu's ears like this. Nice and easy. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the wrinkles to the cape, to the edge of the cape. So I'm just erasing those lines for to go ahead and make the little curved lines. All we're doing is this. Okay. So as far as the weapon is concerned, I'm not adding that in just now. I'll be adding that after I do the first layer of yellow paint for the background. Actually, that's a yellow orange that I got back there. But the weapon, we'll add it later and we'll cover that in brown. That's easy to do. So we're not worried about that. Okay. Make sure you take a look at your painting in here, at your drawing. We're not worried about these lines right now. We'll add those later with paint. So these here, we're not adding those till later. Let's take a look at everything. Take a little step back. Look at your drawing from a distance. Make sure you're not missing anything. Okay, look at your proportions. Is there anything you need to fix? Once you've looked at that, you do want to come in here and add your moon. Now, for those of you that have a hard time drawing circles, we're going to draw one here in a second, but you can take a look at the bottom of a bottle. Actually, that's almost pretty perfect. Almost the same size. You can do something like that. And the moon can be whatever size you want. You could use the top of a paint bottle, same thing. You could use, maybe if you want a smaller moon, you could use something else, right? Whatever you want to do. If you want to draw a nice round circular, that's how you would do that. Otherwise, you freehand it. Start smaller and light with your pencil lines, and slowly refine it. Make it as big as you'd like. Once you have the size that you want, go ahead and define the edges. Erase any lines you don't need. And you're good to go. All right, we're going to get into painting here pretty quickly. Let me look at your questions. Let me see what you guys got. I'll give you guys a little bit to make sure you've got everything. You got it, Catherine, Todd, my pleasure. Thank all of you for hanging out with me today. This is a fun one. I like doing these. You know, these are a lot of fun for me. So I really appreciate you guys coming out and hanging out. How's it going, Amy Massey? Says just got home, so I'll be catching the replay later. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you, Amy. Absolutely, come on back. And of course, this goes for anyone that wasn't able to watch the live from the beginning. Now, if you're on YouTube you can back up the live. Like, let's say right now you just jumped on here and you're like, oh my gosh, I missed this. If you go over to my YouTube page, Painting with Jesse, you'll find the live feed and you can back it up to the beginning. Okay. From what I understand, YouTube allows you to, from the lives that I watch, you can back it up, pause it, jump back to where we are now. But Facebook does not. With Facebook, you have to wait till after it's over. Okay. So anyhow, but all right. We're about to start painting here in about a minute. Okay. So get yourselves situated. Make sure you've got everything, right? Again, we're not doing the weapon right now. The Mando's weapon, we're not worried about that. That's going to be added later. Mary, you got it. My pleasure. Hopefully he likes it. Hopefully he enjoys it. All right. But okay, guys, let's get our paints together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint the green around Grogu's face. Now I've got a dark green. Okay. Oh, let me talk about the brushes really quickly. Let me talk about the brushes. Now I may not end up using every one of these, but we'll see. First brush that I might be using is this big 1-inch flat brush. This is what you call a flat brush. This is good for painting in the background. When we do the background, this is likely what I'm going to be using. I'll use a small brush first to go around everything, kind of outline everything. Then I'll be using this larger brush to make long brush strokes. Okay, 1-inch flat brush. All my brushes are synthetic bristle brushes. Okay, so there's the first one. The next brush in my group, next size brush, is this number 8 flat. Okay, pretty basic brush, similar to this one in shape, but it's a little smaller. I can paint on the inside. Okay, I can do things like this. Pretty versatile brush. Okay, there's that. The next one of my favorite brushes to use, this filbert, what you call a filbert. Now, if you don't have these brushes, don't worry about it. Use what you've got. Do your best. Okay, this is a round. The filberts are known for having the rounded edge top. Now, these are skinny brushes, narrow. These are really good to paint on the edges of curved lines like this, like the helmet, like the sun or the moon, or this, if you make this into a planet, right? Grogu's head. Okay, again, that's a filbert, and this one is a number 5 filbert. Okay, one of my favorite to use. And then I've got a couple of small, what you call round brushes. Okay, these round brushes are just pointy, really small. They get really skinny. I use these to do things like the eyes, outlines, etc., etc. I've got a number 3 and a 0. Very skinny brushes that come in really useful to paint. Again, small detailed stuff. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and paint on Grogu's face. And I'm going to start with my filbert for that. Okay, this guy right here, my little number 3 filbert. Number 4, I'm sorry, this is number 4. I've got this really kind of dark green right here. I'm going to bring it, just grab a little bit of it, bring it over here. Now my plate's really dirty because I'm reusing a plate. I use them as much as I can, but I've got some fresh green right here. I'm just going to bring it over to the side. I'm going to take a little bit of white. I'm going to mix the two together. There we go, just like that. Make kind of a lighter green. You can also use yellow for this instead of white. Up to you. If you use yellow, he'll look a little more of a lime green color. But I suppose Grogu does have a little bit of yellow in his skin tone, just a touch. Anyway, once you've got the color that you want, you're going to go ahead and take that And I like to outline everything first, work around my edges. Again, I'm using my filbert brush. I know a lot of you already know this from painting with me or just from your own painting experience. Acrylic paint, you tend to have to layer it. So usually the first layer tends to be transparent and uneven. You simply, we laid down the first layer and then we don't sit there stressing about it, trying to make everything perfect and even on the first pass. We put down the layer of paint and then we come back later and do another coat over it. You guys can already tell that there's a difference in my color here. With this Grogu and the one on the original, I used a little bit of yellow to tint it that way a little bit. That's more of a lime green. Okay. So I can still see all my pencil lines coming through my paint, so I'm not worried. I'm covering my mouth and my nose and everything else. That's okay. As long as I can see my pencil lines coming through, that's all good. There we go. Now, if you want, like I said, if you wanted to make a color a little more like that, you would take a little bit of yellow. I'm going to go ahead and pour some out. And you would mix it into your green a little bit, just a touch. Slowly bring up the color to more of a lime green. A little bit, subtle. There we go. So I just poured out a little bit of yellow over here. I'll grab a little bit of it. I'll bring it over, mix it in with that color that I made. Now watch the difference. I can layer it right over the color that I put on here right now. Okay, need a little more of that. If I would have started with this color, it would look a little more like that. And again, no right or wrong. Either one is perfectly fine. Baby Yoda could be all different shades of green, and it'll still look like Baby Yoda. Okay? All right. So there's that. I like to come up right over my pencil lines. I cover those up. Now, as you use a brush with acrylic paint, what you want to do is you want to make sure whenever you use a brush, it goes right back into that water again so it doesn't dry out on you. Now I'm going to go ahead and clean up my brush in the water cup by sloshing it around in there. But then when I pull it out, I'm going to grab a paper towel, squeeze out any extra paint. Okay, you want to remove all of that green that we had. Now I'm going to take some white. Okay, bring it over to part of my plate over here. I'm going to grab a little tiny bit of black. You don't need much. I'm going to make a gray, basically creating the darkest gray for Mando. So yeah, you just have to play with it a little bit. Again, right now we're creating the darkest gray. Once you've got the color that you need, you're going to do this. We'll start with the helmet. Again, I like to go around the edges first, outlining everything. Same thing on the other side. Again, don't stress if you're falling behind. I know some of you guys are speed painters. Some of you guys are going, Jesse's taking too long. And then some of you guys are, have a slower pace. There's no right or wrong. But if you are falling behind, again, don't worry about it too much. Stay with us as much as you can. And then just know that you can come back and paint with a recorded session. Okay? If you're really far ahead, as long as you're comfortable with your pace, as long as you're comfortable with what you're doing, no worries. Okay? But I cannot go really quickly because I will lose a whole bunch of you if I go too fast. But just know that the recorded session will be available afterwards. Okay, now, so this color is also the same color that I just used for the top of the helmet. It's going to be here on the inside. So here, on this curved part. Still using my filbert brush. Okay, come over to the other side and do the same thing. Nice and easy. Nothing to it. Just like that. Okay. Now the same color is on the outer edges of the armor. So over here, I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to do this. I'm going to draw that edge. Okay, so like that. And then all of this is going to be the same color. If you are new to the page, whether on YouTube or Facebook, please make sure you guys like. If you guys are painting along, make sure you guys give the video a like, a love. Send me some hearts. All that interaction helps with the algorithm on both platforms, and it would be greatly appreciated. Leave me a comment, say hello, especially on YouTube. The channel is barely growing there, but I would greatly appreciate some interaction. Help others find these sessions. Also, if you guys like what you're doing here today, please share it. Share it to your social media platforms. Let people know, hey, check this out. Look what I did with painting with Jesse. Same thing over on this side. Here's the edge of, I'm just defining the edge of that armor. So again, I draw this outer dark edge, and then the rest of this gets that. Now, some of you may have to come back and do a second layer of this color, okay? So make sure you mix enough paint to have enough for 2 layers, or you're gonna have to remix it. You're gonna have to, when you come back and do another layer, you'll have to come back and do another mixture of this. As long as it's close, you're fine. Sometimes it's a little hard to match a color, but as long as you're doing the entire area all at one shot on a second or third layer, as long as the color that you're using is, you're going to cover everything, you're going to be okay. So if you happen to run out, let's say we do this layer, you run out of your paint, and then I come back and I say, okay, we're going to do another layer of this dark gray. That new mixture, as long as it's close in color, you'll be okay. But you want to mix enough to do an entire layer at one time. Whether it's 1, 2, or 3 layers, each one of those layers, you want to be able to cover the entire area with that layer, with that paint color. Okay. All right. So here we go. Next step, we're going to light. So the next shade that we're going to use, uses the one that's in between here and on the chest plate. This color in here goes here on the chest plate, on the sides of on the insides of the armor. That same gray that we just made, we're just going to make it a little bit lighter, okay? And then the lightest part is this. That's the lightest part. It's almost white. So this next color that you create, as long as it's a color that's going to be in between this one, the darkest shade, this one, and the lightest shade, you're okay. So again, a little bit of white, a little bit of black. Make sure that it's lighter than what we just used for the helmet. And you're just eyeballing it. You don't have to measure exact amounts, just eyeball it. All right, here we go. And this might be a little too dark, but we'll see. That's a little too dark. I'm going to add some more white to it. Sometimes you got to play with your mixture a little until you get it right. Just remember, once you've got the color that you want, make sure you're mixing enough to cover the entire area that you want to cover. So there we go. That's more like it. Again, I'm using my non-painting hand to stabilize the hand that's holding the brush. Let me come right up the middle with this. If some of you are struggling with this a little bit, just take it as a challenge. Have some fun. Okay, don't stress about it too much. Okay, then the same color is going to go on the outside, these little areas on the sides of the helmet that stick out. Okay, and there's a difference between this and this. No big deal. I can make this lighter if I want on another layer. Okay, no big deal. It all still works. But the same color that we're using now is going to come inside here. Okay. Here and then over here. Okay. The chest plate. Be careful you don't add any of this paint right over Grogu, right? Other side. So somebody earlier when they asked, "Hey, are we doing the background first, or are we doing Mandalorian first?" The order can be changed around. It doesn't really make too much of a difference. The reason why I chose to do Mando and Grogu first is because if this all requires a second layer of paint, let's say we're done with the first layer of paint on everything, I move to the background. When I'm working the background, all of this is drying. So it gives me time. It gives this time to dry, and then we come back and do another layer over this. Then if this needs another layer, we can go back to that last. Okay? But it would have worked the other way around also. There's no exact way of painting. There's different approaches. I know there's some general rules for efficiency and things like that, but paint in whatever way makes you happy. That's what I tell people when they ask me technical questions. There are technical processes involved with painting. I'm not necessarily going to tell you that, you have to follow them. There are some that make things a little easier, but if you're producing paintings that you enjoy, with whatever process you enjoy, that's the right way for you, right? But anyhow, that was a great question. Somebody asked that earlier. All right. So work on that for just a little bit. Remember, make sure the main thing you want to do on this step is you want to cover up all these areas so you don't see any of the white underneath peeking through. You want to define your edges nicely. If you're newer to acrylic painting, like I mentioned, if you're painting with acrylic paints, just know that the first layers are always a little blotchy, or usually a little bit blotchy. It depends on the type of the brand, things like that. But generally speaking, the first layer of acrylic, especially if you're using more of a student grade quality, they tend to be a little bit blotchy. So don't stress about that too much. Put your layer down. If your painting requires a second or even third layer, we'll add that later. All right, so take a moment with that. Let's take a look at those comments, see what we got. Let's see. Jessica Hill Denner says, "So want to do this, but on my way home from work, will probably do tomorrow." Sounds good, Jessica. Absolutely. Okay, Donna Ascott. So you can send them to me. It looks like you're on Facebook. You can send them to me on, if you go over to my Painting with Jesse page, you're going to hit message, send message. So once that dialog box opens up, you can attach your pictures there. You might have to say hi first. I don't remember. Some people have told me that they weren't able to send me anything until they said hello first, or sent me a written message first, and then they were able to add an attachment. I don't know if that's true, but either way, you should be able to add an attachment. The other thing is you can also email me at paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. Okay, so either one will work, but I would love to see your paintings. So if you guys could send those over to me, that would be fantastic. Kat Ann says, my 9-year-old daughter is doing this right now. She loves the child, LOL. Yeah, the child is super cool. Happy 10th birthday, Bryce Campbell. Happy 10th birthday. Everybody say happy birthday to Bryce. Hope you're having a good time. What's happening, Lori? Sounds good. No worries. No worries. Meg Harris Pillay says, hi, Jesse. I'm painting with my kids today. Awesome. Hello to all of you guys. I know you've painted with me many times in the past, so welcome back. And thank you for being here. Super awesome. But okay, let's continue here. So what is next, Jesse? Great question. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take some black. I'm going to take one of my round brushes, one of my small. I can do this with one of these right here. Actually, no. Yeah, I'll start with this. One of my round, skinny brushes. Okay, a little pointy thing. Just going to grab some black. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go ahead and paint the inside of Grogu's eyes. There we go. All right. Okay. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and switch. Let me see here. I'm going to go back to my filbert. Okay, the one that I was using a moment ago for all the gray parts on Mando. I'm just going to take some black like this. Now this is where you got to be careful, depending on the brush that you're using. So I'm going to go and do the center part, the inside of the helmet. I'm going to do the outlines first. Now I'm not using the broad side. I pressed the brush flat onto the plate like this to make this edge nice and skinny. Now what I can do is I can use this filbert to outline first. Okay, like this. Okay. And then we'll go to the top. Okay. Okay. Now I made this a little bit wider than on the original. If I wanted to fix this, let's say, so this is a more obvious angle than that is. If I wanted to fix that, I could take a paper towel with a little bit of water. Okay, I just dip a little tiny bit of this into a little bit of water, and then I can come in here and I can do this. Slightly, because the paint is still wet, I can clean it up. So I'm just taking a clean edge each time I do this. Going to remove some of the gray underneath it, but if I wanted to fix that, that's what I would do. Okay, I could just simply go like that. And then I'd come back, do that gray again, and go over the black again, refine that edge a bit. Okay, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but that's how you would fix something like that. If you wanted to go back and make it as skinny as these, okay? So we're not going to worry about it too much. It's not that big of a difference, and I still like it, so I'm good with it. But I'm going to come in here and clean up that edge in black first, and I'll come back with gray. There we go. All right, cool. Now really quickly, I'm going to go back and clean up this white part. Add more of that dark, more of that gray in there really fast. So just taking some of that paint. There we go. Okay. Let's see, we got a birthday, 11th birthday for Aman. Happy birthday, Aman. Everybody say happy birthday to Aman. I believe I'm reading that correctly. Let's see, Melissa McKenzie says it's my kid's birthday. He's turning 9. He's doing good. Happy birthday to you. Tanya Golden, having fun from Texas. Awesome. Mariana, watching while she works. Awesome, Mariana. I think I like wherever you work. Pretty cool. But all right, here we go. What's next? Well, the next step, and I actually should have done this first because we're working with all the grays. We should have done this part first again. We can interchange steps, but the next logical step would have been to go with my lightest gray before I went to the black. But no big deal. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take, in this case, I'm going to take my number 3 round. I've got some of that gray sitting here. I'm just going to take a bunch of white. Now this is mostly white. Whoops, got to avoid that green that got mixed in there. This is mostly white. So I don't need a lot of this. Just mix it in a little bit with that gray that I've got, and that's going to come in here. You can already see that the difference is subtle between this and this. This is bare white canvas, and then this gray color that I'm adding is really subtle. Just remember that this is all the first layer of paint. We can always come in here and refine this, change things up a little bit. When we outline everything, everything's going to pop. So, okay, but there's that. Next thing that I do want to do to Mando is add the dark brown. It's all around the arms. The colors are actually pretty basic for this painting. We could have done a lot of different shades and things like that and made it really complex, but I chose to make it a simplified versions of these colors. Okay, so I'm just still using my filbert. I'll be using my filbert a lot here. Just cleaning it up. I've got some brown here on my plate. It's a really dark brown. Just going to take a little bit of this, bring it over to the side here. Okay. What I'll do now is what I've been doing, of course, with everything, is I outline first. Just going to go through here like this, comes up. Careful in between here. Switch over to a smaller brush if you've got to get into these little nooks, crannies. Now, just because I'm using a filbert doesn't mean you've got a filbert that you've got to be using a filbert. Use whatever brush you're comfortable with. Just going through and outlining everything first. Okay, then we fill it in. Remember, the blotchiness goes away, or most of the blotchiness will disappear after a second and sometimes third layer. So don't sit there fretting on your first layers with acrylic paint. If you're doing watercolor, I know it's a little different, right? If you're doing this in markers or crayons or colored pencils, the process is a bit different. But with acrylic paint, the blotchiness will go away after you do a couple of layers. 2 layers, 3 layers. Okay, so if you've got some blotchiness, don't stress over it. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and switch to my number 3 round. Little pointy guy here. Gonna grab the brown, have a little bit of white in the water that I picked up, but that's okay. It's pretty diluted, so it's not gonna make much of a difference. But we're gonna do the arms now. The area here under Grogu's ear, the waist. So again, everyone, please send me pictures of your masterpieces. It's a lot of fun to have everybody kind of share, and everybody gets to see what everyone else did. Lots of people enjoy that. So if you guys could send me those pictures, that would be awesome. I'll share those tomorrow sometime. See what changes you guys made. See how creative you guys got. Okay. Up here. Sometimes you have to add a little bit of water to your paint. If you've got really thick paint, adding a little bit of water to your mixture, simply dipping your brush into the water and bringing it over like this, and taking a little section of it and adding that water to your paint, mixing in really, really well, will allow this paint to flow a little bit better. Makes it easier to get in between spaces, make little thin lines. Now, for those of you that start to get more advanced in your drawing, there are specialized pencils specifically for drawing with different strengths. There's pencils that are good for shading. There's pencils that are good for little thin lines. They vary in density, basically, the graphite that's in them. So there are pencils that you can get that will help you do things like, let's say you draw faces, all the different shades in there. You start from a very abstract, or let's call it an abstract piece, and slowly refine it till you get a really nice likeness of somebody by switching pencils as you go. You usually go from a soft pencil to a harder pencil, but it depends on what it is that you're drawing. But anyhow, there are pencils out there strictly for those of you that just want to draw. Okay, there we go. little by little. The red. Melissa McKenzie says, sorry, how did you make that red? What red are you talking about, Melissa? Red? Okay. So next step is we're going to go ahead before we actually do the little, I don't know, let's do the brown. We're going to do the brown for Grogu's, his little outfit. So I'm going to take a little bit of yellow. I've got this dark brown over here. I'm going to grab a little bit of it. Don't need a lot. Mix it with some yellow. Or I could also mix it with some white if I want to just simply lighten it up. But a little bit of yellow. Let's see. Whoops, right there. It's going to give me a light brown. If you have a light brown, then just use that. I'm going to grab a little bit of white also, throw it in there. The white can give it a little bit of a chalky color, chalky brown. All good. Got a little bit of green mixed in with my paint. That's okay. Give it a bit of a mustard color. I'm good with that. So here we go. Again, don't stress if you're falling behind or if you've got to take off because we're taking too long. That Jesse guy's taking too long with his instruction. What the heck? I got to go. If you're not done, don't worry about it. If you've got to take off, I mean, hopefully you can stay till the end, but if you've got to take off, it's okay. Come back and finish with the recorded session. Both will be both on Facebook and on my YouTube. All right. There's Grogu's little outfit. Now I'm going to take a little bit of pink. I've got some pink right here. Just going to grab it and continuing with my number 3 round. Just going to grab some pink here. I'm not adding any of the details on Grogu's face just yet. We're going to do those later. Check this out, everyone, from scratch. Hope you're all having fun creating today. And yep, this pink that I'm using here is a little bit brighter, a little bit stronger than the pink I used over here, but I'm okay with it. If you've got a color that looks like this, but you want to lighten it up a little, all you do is add a little bit of white to it, and you're good to go. But either way, works out just fine. There we go. Let me take a little step back, make sure that I'm not missing anything before we move on to the background. Again, we're going to come back and add more detail to the inside in a little bit. So take a little step back, look at your painting, see where you are. You guys got about a minute before we start working on that background. Okay. And we're going to start with the moon or the sun or planet or whatever it is you want to make yours. Okay. But all right. The next event that I've currently got scheduled on Painting with Jesse is this right here. Okay, we're going to be doing this. I don't remember the date on this. Next month sometime. April 5th, I think is what it is. This is, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do this completely from scratch. If you guys are interested in checking this out, a virtual session here on Facebook and on YouTube, go to the event tab on Painting with Jesse and click. You'll see the picture of this. Click on it. Find all the details. There will be no stencil for that one. We're going to do everything from scratch. But don't worry. I make it easy, as you guys can see. All right? All right. Very cool. We're getting there, everybody. We're getting there. So, moving on. Moving on here. Okay. We're going to grab some yellow. Now, I'm going back to my filbert. My filbert has brown on it, right? I was just using it brown. I think, yeah, it is brown because I was using it on Grogu's. Oh, was it? I was using it on the brown of Mandalorian's cloak, all the brown parts on the Mandalorian. So I'm going to clean it up pretty well. Okay, again, whenever you can, once you swirl your brush around in the water, you can take a paper towel and squeeze out any extra paint. Okay, just kind of do that. I'm going to take some yellow. Use a small brush for this. This can get a little tricky. So use a small brush for this. And your moon will, if you're making this yellow, you're going to require at least a couple of layers of this color because yellow tends to be transparent. Right? So all I'm going to do is, again, I'm using my filbert. Filberts are good, again, because it's easier to paint around curved edges like this. If you're using a flat brush to do this, you can do it with a flat brush or round, but a filbert just makes things a lot easier. Okay, so do your outline first. And then come on in and paint the inside. There we go. I've got a really rickety stool that I've been using now for a few years. And I noticed earlier when I sat on it that I better make sure I tighten up some screws on it pretty soon, or else you guys might see me fall down, might see a break on me on one of these lives, and that would be pretty funny. But yeah, I can kind of, you guys can hear it, but as I sit on it, every time I kind of put my weight on it, it does a little bit of a, right? And I'm going, oh, Jesse, unless you want to fall down in one of these lives, you better make sure you fix it. So I got to make sure I probably, when we're done here today, I'm going to tighten up these screws. So we'll see though. We'll see. Might make for a really funny blooper though. But okay, so there's my moon. Again, one layer is all you need for now. Don't sit there stressing about making it super even or clean or anything like that. You're not going to get very far with that on this first layer. What you're going to do next is, again, with the filbert, I'm going to take a little bit of orange. I've got this deep orange. I'm going to mix this with some yellow to create my background color, that orange. Or you could just, if I wanted to, I could just simply use that orange, right? Nothing wrong with using this color. It might be kind of cool. But instead, where's my big brush? I'm going to grab my big number 1. This is a 1-inch, not number 1, but this is a 1-inch brush. I'm going to scoop up a bunch of this orange right out of the lid. Can I go like this? Now, I'd be better off using a different plate for this, but let me see if I can find a spot, clean spot. Yeah, right here. Just going to put it right there on my plate here. Now, I'm going to take some yellow. Got a bunch of yellow over here. But anyway, sometimes accidents happen, and they happen live. But that's not one accident that I want to happen live. Okay, just putting down some yellow on my plate. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a bunch of it and do this. I'm going to mix yellow and some orange here. Now, it can be a little bit streaky. It doesn't have to be perfectly blended, all one color. The streakiness in there will create little light streaks in the background. Up to you, or you can blend it really, really nice so it's all one even color. Whatever you do is perfectly fine. Okay, kind of like this. Okay, once you've got the color that you're looking for, I'm going to take my big brush and put it down for a second. I'm not going to put it back in my cup just yet. I'm going to take, this first time I'm using this little square brush. Okay. I'm going to use this, my flat, not square, but flat. Small flat brush that I have. I'm going to go through here and I'm going to outline Mando's helmet. Now the straight edge, I'm using the skinny edge, as you guys can see. That straight edge makes it nice and easy to stay on the outside of these straight lines. A filbert can also be used for this. On these curved parts, the filbert might be a little bit better. Just be careful. We're outlining everything first. Now this down here with the little parts down there, the white parts underneath where his arm, underneath the armpits, that's going to be black. He's wearing a cape. So all that is back in shadow. So here and here, that's going to be black. I should have done that when I did Grogu's eyes, but that's okay. No big deal. Now, if you guys would like to help support the pages, Facebook and YouTube, it'd be greatly appreciated if you guys can share, again, your pictures and stuff when you guys post them on social media, whether you're on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. Well, not YouTube, sorry, Instagram, Facebook, all of them. Tag the page. Really quickly, before I continue, I'm going to go ahead and erase these lines. Don't need them anymore. I don't want to have to mess with having to cover them with paint. Sometimes they'll come through the paint and I have to layer more than I need to. So let's clean those up. Okay, right, those lines that we made at the beginning. But anyway, that would be a great way to help support the page. Share with your friends, anybody you think might be interested in these. I do these live sessions on a regular basis. Try to do at least 2 a week. Sometimes I do 3, sometimes I do 1. It just really depends. Now, I'm going to outline my moon here really quickly, my sun. You know what? It's just a yellow moon. I'm going to call it a yellow moon because I got these stars in there too. Mine's a yellow moon. On this planet that we're on, this is a yellow moon. Okay, now I can take this little brush and fill in the rest of it, but I'm going to go ahead and take my big brush, my big number 1. I want a nice even background, so I'm going to take long brush strokes like this. Just got to be careful, right? It's a really big brush and very easily I can mess up and paint over the top of Grogu's body. I mean, Grogu's body, the Mandalorian's body. I know some of you guys are going to change the colors of your background, the colors of your this over here, whether it's a planet or a moon or what. All good. Make choices that you can get creative. Whatever you're happy with, just do it. Whatever sounds right to you. And again, just keep in mind that everybody's painting is going to look different. Even if you're trying to make yours look exactly like the original, it's okay if it doesn't. Okay. When you're done with the front, if you're painting on a canvas, you can do your edges if you want. You don't have to, you can leave these blank. Then The bottom edge, because I'm on an easel, I won't do that now. I'll leave that till later. But you want to make sure if you do leave that for later, for the very last step, which is what I would do this last, I would flip it over and do that top edge and then let it sit to dry. You want to make sure you save enough paint of that background color to do that. All right, so just something to keep in mind. But all right. If you need to switch to a smaller brush to clean up some of your edges, some of these little areas that maybe you couldn't get to with that big brush, switch over to that and then just go in there and clean some things up. And again, it's like with everything else, you might have to do a second layer on this background color. Okay. All right, we're getting there. You got it, Melly Jasso. Laura, my pleasure. Thank you for hanging out today. You guys might see the stool break today. I hope not. Joanne Adams says, loving how this is coming together. Awesome. Fantastic. What's up, Pamage? How are you? Miranda White. Neck, arms, in between armor is brown. Yeah, so this is brown in here. All this is just brown. And what I did is I've just got a dark brown on my plate that I used for that. If you don't have a dark brown and you have a lighter brown, you could add a little bit of black to it to darken it up a bit. You could also add a little bit of blue to it to darken it up. Okay, depends on if you have dark blue, right? So either way. So again, this is brown. This is a brown color in there. Let's see. Which parts were brown on his outfit? Oh, gotcha. My grandma calls Grogu George, I think, or Gorg, Gorga. Oh, you're talking about this? Yeah, this is pink. Yeah, so this is actually pink, Miranda. This is just a kind of a hot pink that I have here. I didn't mix it with any white. If I wanted to be a little lighter, I would have added a little bit of white to it to make it look like that. Okay, that's all that is. But anyway, folks, really quick, as you guys are getting finished up there with your background, I know that can take a little bit. Sometimes it's a little tricky. I do have for those of you that are interested in supporting the page through a tip, I do have a virtual tip jar. I've got the information up on the screen. Somebody gave me the idea of using the QR codes for some of these, like Venmo, for example, has a QR code that I can post. In the future, I'll have that. I know this can be a little tricky to write down and go back to and try to find me on Venmo or PayPal. But whether you go on Facebook, PayPal or Venmo, it is under Painting with Jesse, all one word, Painting with Jesse. You'll see me, you'll see my picture at the very top of the account holding a canvas, giving instruction, but it's clearly me. Okay, so Painting with Jesse on either Venmo or PayPal. And then I do have a Zelle, and the Zelle is just simply my phone number, 951-217-2237. For those of you that would like to support the page that way, it would be greatly appreciated. It does help out. So anyway, that information is there at the bottom of the screen. Let me see if I can. I know we're not doing anything down there just yet, so I'll take that off here in a little bit. All right, so again, about a minute before we continue. See, let's go back to your comments. Gabriela, my pleasure. Thank you for being here. Don't forget, folks, please send me your pictures. Don't forget to send me pictures of your stuff. Makes it a lot of fun to share that with everyone. Share those, so please send those to me. Again, via Messenger here on Painting with Jesse on Facebook. You can send them to my email at paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. Those are the two ways, the best ways to do it. You can also post them. You can also post them to the event that's happening right now in the comment section. When you guys are all done, you can always come back and post them there. But it's easier for me to keep track of them if you message them to me. Okay. So all right. Okay, everyone. So we're gonna add some touch-ups to the Mandalorian and Grogu. Okay, we're actually going to start with the furrows, the little furrowed brow on Grogu, and those are a dark green. So the same green color that I used earlier, I'm just gonna add a little bit of black. Now I'm gonna take my number 1 round brush, okay, the one with a really skinny tip. I'm gonna grab some green. Just gonna dip it right in there. I'm gonna move it over to the side. Grab a little bit of black. I just want to make a dark green color. So just kind of doing this. It's gonna be kind of a forest green. But what I'm going to do is once I've made my mixture, I'm gonna take my brush, dip it into my water cup, and mix that water in. Hold on 1 second while I remove that banner because we're gonna be drawing down there towards the bottom. There we go. Okay, so I've got that dark green. With my round brush, what I'm doing is I'm pushing the brush up against the plate and spinning it. What that does is it makes the point of my brush really skinny. Now I can come in here and I can do this. Okay, now my Grogu doesn't need a second layer of paint. I like what he looks like. If you wanted to make your Grogu more even or a different color, you would add in a second layer of paint. This is when you would do it before you do any of these details. Okay, so you get to decide whether you want to do a second layer or not. Okay, you can always do the second layer now and then finish with these details a little bit later with the recorded session, or you can catch up with the live. There's his little nose. Okay, now I'm going to do his mouth. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this same green. I'm going to outline his ears and then the rest of his head. So here, top of his head. These outlines aren't necessary, but when you outline like this, everything starts to stand out from the background. You're basically defining edges. And what that does is it makes whatever you're outlining stand out from the background. Okay. Big difference between Grogu outlined and Grogu not outlined. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take some black. Same brush. This is going to overpower the green color that I've got on the brush, so I'm not too worried about it, but I'm going to take some of this black, bring it over. Now, same thing. You get to decide whether your Mandalorian needs another step, another layer of paint or not. I'm going to go and do the outline first. Ideally, I would put my layers of paint all in first before I do an outline. But because mine's pretty close to where I want the finished product to be, I'm going to go ahead and outline it first, and then I'll decide if I want to do a second layer over it. Meaning, if you really want a clean looking Mando, you would come in and do a second layer of paint over everything that we've done. Okay. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead, outline first, and then I'll take a look at it, see if I want to do a second layer, at least on video. Okay. Here we go. So the water in my paint is allowing me to make these outlines nice and easily. Okay. If your paint's a little thick, you want to make sure you add a little bit of water to it. So again, paint, bring it over to the side, dip your brush into the water, mix it in really, really nicely. Spin your brush in the paint so it makes that tip nice and skinny. And then here we go. The outlining is always the trickiest, especially if you're trying to make really skinny lines. Now, not every single part of Mando has to be outlined. You can pick some spots to outline that'll define your edges. I'm using my finger here. I place it up against the canvas as long as this is all nice and dry. Stabilizes my hand. Okay. Even though this is already outlined in black, right? The edges are black. And come in here and further clean them up. So water is your friend. Add water to your paint. Help it make it flow a little bit better. Now don't overdo it, right? You don't want to overdo your how much water you add, because then you might make it too runny. And that's no good unless you're looking specifically to make it, runny paint. But all right, here we go. Let's continue with the armor. Again, you don't have to outline every single section, but you can if you want. Let's see. Kind of like what I've got so far. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add these lines here under the chest plate. Those are right here. Other side. There we go. So take a moment with that. Oh, I did forget to put the gun. Gun's coming up. Thank you, Jacqueline. Almost never fails. I'll forget something, but we'll be adding his weapon in just a little bit. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. What's happening, Penny? How are you? Definitely doing much better today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I got a little sick there for a bit. So for those of you that don't know, I had my second COVID shot about 8 days ago now. But on the 5th day, everything was perfectly fine. On the 5th day, all of a sudden I got really sick. Not really, really sick, but I got some pretty strong symptoms going there. Couldn't tell if it was the flu or a cold or if it was just the after effects of the second shot. They lasted about 24 hours, and all of a sudden, and from what I've been reading, that's pretty typical. So yeah, that's what I think it was. Anyway, much better today. Almost 100%. Almost 100%. Okay, so as you guys are working on that outline, just again, you don't have to outline everything. In a moment, what I am going to do is I'm going to add more brown in here because mine is pretty splotchy. If you guys look up close, right? And that's okay. You could leave it like that. It works. But and then I'm going to add the weapon here in a second, and then I'm also going to add the black in between down there. Okay. And then of course we still have a few little things left. Don't worry. We got the stars. We got the little highlights in Grogu's eyes. But I want to add that weapon. Now you can go ahead and draw it if you'd like. Okay. Just make sure, wherever you draw, you might have to angle it depending on how much space you've got between the edge of your canvas and the Mandalorian's body. But what you can do is I would start with this part here first. Put that down first. Okay, this little curved part. So right here, find a little spot. Almost looks like the letter C. Okay. Then from there, we start with this bottom part. Comes under. Okay, kind of like this. Remember, light lines so you can erase. I'm just gonna make mine a little thinner, a little skinnier, a little narrower. It's too thick. There we go. That comes in. Okay. This top part almost looks like a claw, right? Kind of like that. This top part obviously is a little longer than this bottom part, and that comes in. And there you go. Nice and easy. Thank you again, Jacqueline, for the reminder. Yeah, I probably would have I would have seen that maybe at the very end, or who knows? Maybe I wouldn't have seen it. It's possible. Okay, and then to color that in, I would simply use brown, but I would tone it with a different color so that it's not the same brown as what's on his brown part of his outfit. Okay, so you want to tone this with a different color. You could use yellow, you could use a little bit of orange, maybe even a little bit of green. As long as it's a different color brown, you're going to be okay. So let's go and do that together. I'm going to grab my filbert. I got some brown right here. Look at this messy plate. Like I said, I like to reuse my plates, reduce waste a little bit. So I'm going to take some brown there. I'm going to dip my brush into the water, mix in that water into the paint. I can take a little bit of yellow, maybe a little bit of orange. Just want to lighten this color up. There we go. I think I'm going to use that. Touch of white. Now, let's do the weapon. Using my filbert brush. There we go. I'm happy with that. You can always take one of your small brushes to refine anything, define your edges, etc. Clean things up. There we go. This is the way. Okay. So take a moment on that. Melissa McKenzie, awesome. Tell your dad we all say hello. Kate Turner from Canada, you got it. My pleasure. We still got a little bit left to go, folks. We're not done yet. Just get caught up there. The weapon might be a little tricky for some of you, so I understand that. Let's see. I see a comment up here about somebody falling behind. Kate Turner says, me and my son are, looks like you guys are falling behind maybe. Again, don't stress, right? Do take your time, no rush. Do this with a recorded session. Mandy Rolo or Royo, how's it going? I think it's Rolo. I need my glasses. Actually, I got to get prescription glasses pretty soon. I use these readers that I wear sometimes. And the letters pop up really tiny in the comment section on this software that I'm using. Carrie Strain, you got it. Definitely fun start to spring break, huh? That's a good way to start, I think. But okay. Mary Caminiti. Good. Happy that you enjoyed it. Guadalupe, what's happening from Oregon? Welcome back. All right, here we go. Little tiny brush. One of your small round brushes. A little pointy one, right? Just going to grab a little bit of white. We're going to give Grogu some highlights. A little bit of little reflections in his eyes. He's got two of them. A little circle. Two little circles like that. Okay. Advika, how's it going? And then right next to it, a little smaller dot. Slightly lower and to the right. Look at that. Okay. One big dot, one little dot. One big dot, one little dot. I know we've still got the stars to do, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take some brown with my filbert, my favorite brush today. Usually one of my favorite brushes. I'm just talking in general about when I paint in general. Just going to grab some brown. Okay. Dip my brush in my paint. What I'm going to do with this, like I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to come in here and add another layer of this paint. Got to grab some more brown paint here. There we go. So I mentioned earlier that you get to kind of decide what needs another layer on your painting. I may do another layer up here on the helmet in just a bit. Give me a second. I'll decide here in a moment. I do have to do the black in between the arm and the body, but the second layer of brown is really defining things. There we go. I like this. Okay. Let me take one of my small round brushes. I'm going to grab some black. And whether I use number 3 or number 2, number 3 or number 0, either one's okay. Just got to make sure I spin my brush there. I'm going to come in here. There we go. Again, this is just the shadow. It's in shadow because he's got a cape. That cape drops down behind. All that back there is in shadow. You can also do this with a dark brown, black which is what I did over here, dark brown, black. So it's not as obvious, but either one works. Then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the same black and I'm going to come up here. I want this black to be a little darker, a little bit more even, so it stands out quite a bit more. Okay. Okay. Irasema Klauman says, painting with my 8-year-old son. He's loving it. Awesome. Fantastic. Jen Monster Mama. We just finished in West Fargo, North Dakota. Thank you. You're very welcome, Jen. Hope you guys had fun. Let's see. Mary says, I'm leaving the live stream. Bye, Jesse. Bye, Mary. Anyhow, folks, what we're going to do last is pretty simple. The little stars in the sky, and the easiest way to do that, well, maybe not the easiest, it depends. You could use the back end of your brush, of any brush, a small brush, dip it right into your yellow, and you can and you just come on over and start dabbing a bunch of dots. Now, by varying the pressure that you put on your canvas, these dots will be different sizes, right? If you want a really small dot, you barely touch it. But generally, the size of your stars is going to be the same. The size of your little circles. If you want varying sizes of stars, you'll use the tip of your bristles here, the very point. Okay. Now, when you come over by using your finger, you press your finger against the canvas, you can kind of do this and you make some, depending on the pressure, now you can really vary the size of your stars. Either way will work just fine. But if you wanted to refine your background, make it deeper, more even, you would do another second, you would do a second layer on that background first before you put in your stars, obviously. The other thing is maybe clean up your moon a bit. I'm just going to do another layer of yellow on that moon. Cleaning up my filbert. Okay, again, use a paper towel to remove the extra paint. Don't forget to send me your pictures. Share, tag the page. Let your friends know about it. If you think some of the people that follow you or friends on social media would like this, let them know. If you're new to the page, first time painting along, there are about 80 plus videos now, coming up to a year anniversary next month. It's actually April 11th is the year anniversary that I started doing these live videos. And we've got about 80 some paintings now. And they're all available for you to go back and watch on Facebook. There's about half of those, maybe, or not quite, third of them are on YouTube, but over 80 of them on Facebook. If you're interested, go check those out. Under the live tab on the main painting with Jesse page is where you will find them. But all right, questions. Let's look at your comments. Give me your questions. As with everything else, going back and layering anything will further define it, further refine it. If I was to be doing this as a commission, or I wanted to give it as a gift to somebody, I would go in there and just uh, do at least a second layer over everything, and then possibly a third layer, just depending on how much definition, how much refinement I want to give my painting. Okay, and this goes for anything on here. Uh, there's a limit, right? You can only layer so much before the paint starts to get really thick. But you could, as long as they're thin layers of paint, you could do 3, 4, 5, 6 layers even if you want. And again, generally speaking, the more you refine, the more layers you add, the cleaner the finish will look, the more even your colors would be. So, but anyway, folks, questions. Ooh, my favorite Star Wars movie. Great question. I'm going to say it's Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi. I wasn't a huge fan of the Phantom Menace series. What is that? The 90s, right? 90s. And then, but actually some of the later movies have been pretty good. But I'd have to say Return of the Jedi. That is the bomb movie for me. Maria del Carmen Zapata. Thank you, Jesse, for making the past year easier by sharing your painting skills. Maria, it's my pleasure. Thank you for coming along and painting with me. That goes for everyone of you that's hanging out with me today, whether it's your first time or you painted with me before, or you've been painting with me most of the year. I really appreciate it. It's pretty awesome. I know so many of you that message me over the months, have been messaging me over the weeks and months and sending pictures and everything else. It's really, really awesome. I really do appreciate it. Again, if you're new here, simply know that we do these really cool events at least once a week. Usually it's twice a week, sometimes 3. If you stick around, if you follow and like the page, you'll get notifications every time I post something new. March is getting close to over, and I'm trying to remember what we've got on the schedule for the end of March. This might be the last one for March. I was hoping to add 1 or 2 more before the end of the month. I don't know that I'll get a chance to, but April is going to have quite a few of them. I already have the next April event up, and that's the window pane painting behind me. So if you guys want to go and hang out when that one comes up, please make sure you guys go check out the event page here on Painting with Jesse, so you guys can find out the details. That one's going to be completely from scratch. Okay, we're not going to do stencils on that. I am going to have a pre-prep video on it, so you guys can prep your canvases beforehand. I want you guys to do the drawing part of it. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy, but I'll have a recorded video that lays out the drawing part of this, so you guys could get that done before we actually do the painting session. Because if we don't, and we do all of it at one time, there's going to be a whole bunch of you guys that get fatigued, get painting fatigue. So, but that's not till the 5th of April. Okay, but again, I'll be adding a lot more events. So be on the lookout for all of that. Okay, but all right, let's take a look at your comments here. Misha Case says, whoops, let me see. Had a ton of fun. I'll send you pics on Facebook. Already tagged you on my personal page. Awesome, Misha. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. Tabitha, Jolene, Roscoe Kennedy, enjoy painting with you. Can't wait to do more. Awesome, Tabitha. I see you always send me pictures and stuff, so that's awesome. I really, really do appreciate it. My favorite painting of all. Wow, that's a really good one. Melissa, you're making it difficult for me. So many good ones. So many fun ones. I'd have to really think about it. I've got a bunch of favorite ones. So I'll have to get back to you on that one, but that's a really good question. I'll let you know when I decide. I'll probably tell you it's a series of them, 10 of them, 20 of them. I don't know. But let's see. Oh, Daisy. Hi, Daisy. Says, can you please paint a Frisian horse, please? Thank you. You know what? Horses are really popular. I know I've had a lot of requests for horses. I know we just did the one, and it's not behind me. Where is it? Maybe it isn't. I just can't see it. I don't think I have it hung up. We did one. Oh, here. We did this one last week. For those of you that are interested, this tutorial is still up. You guys can go check that out. This one, I do teach you how to draw it freehand, but there are stencils available for you, for those of you who would like to use a stencil instead. But anyway, horses are really popular. I will most likely be doing something like that in the near future. So you got to stick around, keep your eyes peeled. But I promise you more horses are coming. Haley, my pleasure. To you and Kat, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Glad that you had fun. Okay. Yes, more Star Wars are coming up. Definitely doing some more Star Wars paintings. We'll see what else. Boba Fett is coming in the future. Not too soon, I think, because this is pretty close to Boba. For those of you that might have missed it, I did Grogu, and I don't have it here. It's hanging up on that wall over there. I did Grogu a few weeks ago. Grogu in his little pod. For those of you that didn't get a chance to check that out, go to that live page on my Painting with Jesse page here on Facebook. It's also up on YouTube. You can go back. That one was a lot of fun to do. I teach you how to draw it completely from, by hand. Grogu with his little paw sticking out where he's using the Force, and he's inside his little pod. So, okay, you guys can go check that out. What's happening, Ozzy? How are you? Thank you for coming and hanging out. But all right, everyone, the very last, there's two things I would do last on a painting. Sign it, okay? I know I didn't sign the original, but you can sign your painting. And then what I like to do, whoops, I stuck my brush in here backwards in my water cup. I take one of my small brushes, I pick any color. Maybe I'll use, let's see, what color should I use that'll stand out? Let me grab some blue here. Give me a second. Got some light blue over here. I'm going to use this to sign. Now you can sign with your first name, your last name, and I really got to get this stool fixed. All right, Jesse right here. First name, last name, your initials. I usually sign with my last name, but there we go. I don't have a lot of space, so just going to use my first name there. Then the very last thing that I would do, because I'm painting on an easel, is I would do this. I would take some of this background color and I would paint over the top of that and let it sit like that for a few minutes while it dries, and then flip it over and we're good to go. Okay, but that would be the very last step. But anyhow, folks, that is the end of our session for today. Once again, I really do appreciate you guys all hanging out with me. I'm going to put up my my little tip jar there for those of you that are interested. There is that. Again, I'm on Venmo, PayPal, under Painting with Jesse, all one word, Painting with Jesse. You can also use my Gmail, paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. Please verify, if you guys are going to send me anything, please verify that it's me by looking at the pictures at the top of the account. Okay, if you don't see my picture, it isn't me, so don't worry about it. Okay, and then I do have a Zelle, 951-217-2237. Once again, I want to thank all of you for being here. I really, really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to send me pictures of your masterpieces. Send them over to me on Messenger here on Facebook. You can also email them to me at paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. All right? Okay, everyone. Well, I do want to remind everybody to make sure you follow the pages, Facebook and YouTube, okay? That way you guys are up to date with everything. Thank you so much. Have a great one. I will see you guys all very soon. Bye.